They don't tell you this about Kundalini awakening. They sell you the dream, limitless energy, cosmic wisdom, enlightenment. But what they don't say is that it could wreck you. It could unravel your mind, shake your body to its core, and leave you questioning everything you've ever known. Some call it a spiritual rebirth. Others, a descent into madness. You thought life was hard before. Just wait. The suffering after Kundalini awakening isn't just real. It's inevitable. And by the time you realize what's happening, it's already too late to turn back. Welcome to Kundalini Awakens, where we uncover the truths of Kundalini and more. Because what's coming next is something few are prepared for, the terrifying reason why so many suffer more after their so-called awakening. You'll want to stick around, because by the end of this, you'll understand why the thing you crave most might also be the thing that destroys you. Kundalini awakening isn't a gentle process. It's not a peaceful meditation session where you suddenly feel connected to the universe. It's fire. It's upheaval. It's the unrelenting force of an ancient power surging through your body, breaking apart everything you thought you were. But what exactly is it, and why does it have such a devastating effect on so many? For centuries, mystics and yogis have spoken about this hidden energy, a serpent coiled at the base of your spine, waiting for the right moment to rise. Some say it's the key to divine consciousness, the gateway to higher awareness. But here's what they don't emphasize. Once this energy is unleashed, it doesn't care about your comfort. It doesn't care about your past, your fears, or your attachments. It will push you through pain, stripping away illusions, and force you to confront the darkest corners of your being. You might think you're ready for that. Most people do. They see Kundalini activation like it's some kind of spiritual badge of honor. But they don't realize that enlightenment isn't just about feeling good. It's about destruction. It's about breaking down the false self so something new can emerge. And that process, it's brutal. At first, it seems like a miracle. A surge of energy through your body, waves of euphoria, an overwhelming sense of connection. But this is just the beginning, the moment of bliss before the storm. Because what happens next is where most people find themselves lost, terrified, and completely unprepared. And that's where the suffering begins. The first taste of Kundalini is intoxicating. A rush of energy floods your body, making you feel unstoppable. Your senses sharpen, colors seem more vivid, sounds more profound. You feel connected to everything, the universe, the divine, something beyond words. It's like a spiritual high, and for a moment, you think you've cracked the code to life itself. This is what draws people in. This is what makes seekers chase Kundalini activation at any cost. They believe they've ascended, that they've unlocked some ancient secret meant only for the chosen few. And for a while, it feels like they have. But that feeling doesn't last. What no one tells you is that this initial bliss is a setup, a trap, in a way. The universe doesn't give without taking. And Kundalini, it's not a gift. It's a test. Because right after the euphoria comes the collapse. The nervous system overloads. The mind struggles to make sense of what's happening. The old version of you, the one who functioned in the normal world, starts breaking apart. It's the high before the fall, the moment before everything you've ever buried comes crashing to the surface. And when that happens, there's no off switch. No way to go back. The bliss was never the destination. It was just the bait. And what's coming next will make you question if this so-called awakening was worth it at all. And then it begins. The suffering no one warned you about. The bliss evaporates like a cruel joke, leaving you raw, exposed, and vulnerable to forces you can't control. Your mind becomes a battlefield. Your body, a war zone. The energy that once felt divine now feels like it's tearing you apart from the inside. Sleep, forget it. Your nervous system is in overdrive. Some nights, your body vibrates uncontrollably, electric currents coursing through your spine like you've been plugged into a cosmic power source you never asked for. Your emotions, unpredictable. One moment, you're flooded with love and gratitude. The next, you're drowning in despair. The past comes roaring back with a vengeance, old traumas, suppressed memories, hidden fears, all demanding to be felt, processed, and released. But it's too much. It's all too much. People around you don't understand. They think you've lost your mind. And maybe you have. The ego, the part of you that once held everything together, is dissolving. And without it, you don't know who you are anymore. You try to explain, but how do you put into words something that feels like both enlightenment and insanity? The loneliness is suffocating. Your old life feels foreign, your relationships strained. You can't relate to others the way you used to. Small talk feels unbearable. Their concerns seem trivial compared to what you're going through. You're on a different frequency now, but instead of feeling enlightened, you feel isolated, like you've been exiled from the very world you were trying to understand. And this is just the beginning. Because as the awakening continues, the suffering deepens. And soon, you'll realize this was never about finding peace. It was about tearing apart everything that isn't real. And that process, it's only getting started. Science won't save you from this. Psychologists might call it a breakdown. Doctors might diagnose it as a nervous system disorder. But none of them truly understand what's happening. Your body is changing on a level they can't measure. Your brain is rewiring itself. Your nervous system is under siege. The energy that's flooding your system isn't just metaphysical, it's physiological. And your body, it wasn't prepared for this. Kundalini awakening disrupts the entire nervous system, throwing it into chaos. Some days, you feel like you're on fire, literal heat radiating from your spine, pulsing through your limbs. Other days, you're ice cold, shivering under blankets even when the room is warm. Your heart races like you're in constant fight or flight mode. Your digestion betrays you. Your body aches in places you didn't know could hurt. This isn't a placebo effect. It's real. Studies on meditation and spiritual experiences show that major shifts in consciousness can trigger changes in brain chemistry, nervous system function, and even immune response. But there's a limit to how much the body can handle. And when that limit is crossed, the body fights back with anxiety, exhaustion, panic attacks, and even symptoms that mimic severe illness. And here's the terrifying part. Many people mistake these symptoms for enlightenment. They think the suffering is proof that they're evolving, that Kundalini is purging their system. And while that's partly true, the danger is real. Too much energy, too soon, can overwhelm the body, leading to burnout, psychosis, and in extreme cases, complete mental collapse. So now you have a choice. Do you keep pushing forward, trusting that this suffering has a purpose, or do you try to stop something that can't be stopped? Because once the Kundalini rises, there is no going back. And the only way out is through. You're not alone in this. But it sure as hell feels like it. There are thousands, maybe millions, who've gone through what you're experiencing right now. But their voices are drowned out by the bliss chasers, the self-proclaimed gurus who only talk about the light of Kundalini while ignoring the dark abyss it drags you through. So let's expose the truth. People who've had real Kundalini awakenings don't come out of it feeling like enlightened masters floating on clouds of wisdom. No. They come out of it broken, shattered, and barely holding on. Some of them never make it back. They report disturbing visions, intrusive thoughts that don't feel like their own. Some experience time distortion. Minutes feel like hours. Days vanish into thin air. Others suffer from complete dissociation, unable to recognize themselves in the mirror. And the worst part, no one believes them. Friends, family, even doctors dismiss their experiences as stress, psychosis, or delusion. One person described it as feeling like they were being electrocuted from the inside, unable to turn it off. Another said they became hyper, aware of every lie they had ever told themselves, and it wrecked them. Some begged for it to stop, only to realize that once Kundalini rises, there is no pause button. And then there are those who regret it entirely. They thought they were signing up for peace, for connection, for a shortcut to enlightenment. Instead, they found themselves drowning in a reality they didn't recognize, unable to function in normal society, lost between dimensions of existence they never meant to enter. But here's the real question. If it's so painful, if it's so dangerous, why do people keep seeking it? Because despite everything, despite the suffering, the confusion, the destruction, there's something waiting on the other side. But only for those who make it through. And this is where it gets even more dangerous, because the moment you start suffering, you become vulnerable. And there are people out there who know that. Spiritual teachers, gurus, coaches who promise they have the answers, the secret techniques to balance your Kundalini, to guide you through the process. Some of them mean well. Others, they see an opportunity. When you're desperate, when your world is collapsing and you can't tell if you're waking up or losing your mind, you'll reach for anything. And that's when they step in. Some will tell you that you're special, that your suffering is proof of your spiritual advancement. They'll tell you to push through, to meditate harder, to keep surrendering, without warning you that surrendering to an unbalanced Kundalini can lead to full-blown psychosis. Others will claim they can activate your Kundalini for you, for a price. And that's where things get truly dangerous. Because forced awakenings, they don't just ruin lives, they destroy them. People have paid for Kundalini activations, expecting bliss, only to end up in psychiatric hospitals, unable to function. Others have walked away from everything, careers, relationships, stability, because they were convinced their awakening had put them beyond the concerns of the material world. And here's the most insidious part. Some spiritual teachers know exactly what they're doing. They keep you dependent. They dangle wisdom just out of reach, making you believe that without them, you won't survive this process. They sell you courses, retreats, endless healing sessions. But they never give you the one thing you truly need, the ability to navigate this on your own. Because the truth is, no one can guide you through this. No one can control what Kundalini will do to you. Not a guru, not a healer, not even you. But there is a way to make it through. There is a way to survive without losing yourself completely. And it starts with understanding one thing. Kundalini awakening isn't about seeking more. It's about letting go of everything that isn't real. And that includes the lies you've been told about what this process is supposed to be. So how do you survive this? How do you navigate a force that doesn't care about your comfort, your plans, or your expectations? The first mistake people make is trying to control it. They think if they meditate more, if they chant the right mantras, if they follow the proper spiritual routine, they can somehow tame the awakening, make it work in their favor. But Kundalini doesn't obey commands. It's not something you control, it's something you endure. The second mistake, isolation. Many people shut themselves away, convinced that no one will understand. And they're not wrong. Most people won't. But complete isolation only makes it worse. When you're locked inside your own mind, drowning in intense emotions and visions that defy logic, you need something to anchor you. Human connection, even if it's just with one trusted person, can be the difference between integrating your experience and completely losing touch with reality. And then there's grounding, the thing that could save you but is often the last thing people turn to. Because let's be honest, when you're experiencing something as intense as a Kundalini awakening, the last thing you want to hear is, go touch some grass. But grounding isn't just a cliche, it's survival. Simple things like walking barefoot on the earth, eating dense, nourishing foods, engaging in physical activity. These aren't just distractions. They pull you back into your body, keeping you from getting lost in the endless spiral of your mind. And perhaps the hardest lesson of all, stop chasing the high. Many people suffer more because they're addicted to the initial bliss they felt at the beginning. They keep trying to recapture that feeling, forcing more meditation, more breathwork, more spiritual practices, thinking they can fast, track their way back to enlightenment. But what they don't realize is that Kundalini doesn't work on their schedule. The more they push, the worse the suffering gets. True integration comes when you stop resisting, when you stop trying to speed up the process, when you let go of the illusion that awakening was ever supposed to be comfortable. Because what's waiting for you on the other side of this isn't some mystical superpower. It's not the ability to levitate or download universal secrets. It's something much simpler, much harder. So here's the real question. Was it worth it? After everything, the bliss, the torment, the nights where you thought you wouldn't make it, was Kundalini awakening really the key to enlightenment? Or was it just a brutal lesson in surrender? Most people who make it through don't come out preaching love and light. They don't sit on mountaintops handing out wisdom. They don't become gurus or healers. Instead, they become something far more dangerous to the spiritual industry, unshakably real. Because once you've burned in the fire of Kundalini, you see through everything. You see through the illusion of control, the trap of seeking, the endless cycle of people chasing enlightenment like it's some prize at the end of a spiritual game. You realize that what you were looking for was never some cosmic superpower. It was clarity. And clarity, it isn't always beautiful. You see the false teachings, the exploitative gurus, the people who sell spirituality as an escape instead of what it really is, a confrontation with everything you've been avoiding. And most of all, you see yourself, stripped of illusions, stripped of everything that isn't real. This is the moment of truth. Some people will hear this and still chase Kundalini. They'll still crave the experience, convinced that their awakening will be different. That somehow, they'll skip the suffering and jump straight to enlightenment. And maybe they will. Maybe they'll get lucky. But for those who have already been through it, for those who know what it really means to survive this kind of transformation, the real gift of Kundalini isn't power. It isn't knowledge. It's freedom. Because once you've been destroyed, once you've been shattered and rebuilt from the ground up, there's nothing left to fear. Not suffering. Not death. Not even yourself. Only the fire can. And that fire, it doesn't just change you, it erases you. The person you were before, gone. The beliefs you clung to, burned to ashes. The life you thought you were supposed to have, unrecognizable. Because Kundalini awakening isn't about becoming something greater, it's about losing everything that isn't real. This is why so many suffer after their awakening. Because no one tells them what the real cost is. They think they're stepping into bliss, into divine power, into a higher state of being. But what they're actually stepping into is annihilation. And here's the part that breaks most people. There's no reward at the end. No parade for making it through. No universal congratulations for surviving the darkness. No final moment where everything makes perfect sense. The only thing left is you. The raw, unfiltered truth of who you are, stripped of every illusion, every comforting lie, every story you told yourself about what life was supposed to be. And that truth, It's terrifying. Because once you see reality for what it is, once you see yourself for what you truly are, you can never go back. You can never unsee the depth of human suffering, the cycles of illusion that keep people asleep, the way the world convinces itself that everything is fine when it's not. You walk through life as a ghost, aware of everything, but untouched by it. Seeing through the games people play, the masks they wear, the things they think will save them. And for a while, it feels like a curse. But then, something happens. One day, the suffering doesn't hit the same way. The pain, the chaos, the endless search for meaning, it all just fades. Not because you found some secret answer, but because you finally stop looking. You stop resisting. You stop needing life to be anything other than what it is. And that's when the real awakening begins. Not the one they sell you. Not the one wrapped in light and love and mystical wisdom. The real one. The one that leaves you with nothing but the absolute, undeniable truth. And once you have that, nothing can break you again. And that's the paradox. You suffered more after Kundalini awakening because it was never about bliss. It was never about power. It was never about ascending to some untouchable realm of cosmic perfection. It was about stripping away everything false, everything fragile, everything that could ever be taken from you, until only the unshakable core of your being remained. The suffering wasn't a punishment. It was a purification. But here's what they don't tell you. Most people don't make it through. They get lost in the chaos. They cling to the pain, mistaking it for enlightenment. They latch onto spiritual teachers who keep them trapped in an endless cycle of searching, of suffering, of never truly integrating the experience. Some of them lose themselves entirely, ending up in psychiatric hospitals, caught between dimensions of consciousness they can't escape from. Others numb it out, retreating into the distractions of the material world, pretending none of it ever happened. But the ones who make it through, they don't need to prove anything to anyone. They don't need to talk about their awakening, to convince others of what they've been through, to chase the next spiritual high. They simply exist, fully present, fully real, fully free. And that's why you suffer. Because freedom isn't given. It's earned. This isn't a journey for the weak. It's not for the ones who want shortcuts, who want enlightenment without sacrifice, who think they can outsmart the process. Kundalini awakening doesn't work that way. It destroys you so that you can finally live without fear. It tears you apart so you can see what's underneath all the conditioning, all the illusions, all the lies. And now you understand what few ever will. That the reason you suffered more after awakening was because you were still holding on. Holding on to the old self, the old identity, the old belief that life should be easy, that awakening should be painless, that transformation should be gentle. But real transformation isn't gentle. It's violent. It's relentless. It's the fire that burns away everything that isn't real. And now, you have a choice. You can keep suffering, clinging to the past, to the illusion that things should go back to the way they were. Or you can finally let go. Accept that you will never be the same. Accept that you were never meant to be. Because once you do, the suffering stops. Not because Kundalini spares you, but because you no longer resist it. And that's when you realize the one thing no one ever told you. That the suffering wasn't happening to you. It was happening for you. And now, you stand at the threshold. Not of some mystical kingdom. Not of a higher plane of existence. But at the raw, unfiltered edge of yourself. No more illusions. No more pretending. No more clinging to the life you thought you were supposed to have. You've seen behind the curtain. You've walked through the fire. And now, the suffering wasn't the enemy. The suffering was the path. Everything you lost, you never truly needed. Every part of you that broke, it was never meant to last. Kundalini didn't ruin you. It revealed you. It took away everything false so that what remained could finally be real. And here's the final truth, the one no one talks about, the one that changes everything. Awakening was never about feeling better. It was about seeing clearer. And now that you do, you understand why the suffering had to happen. Why it had to be so brutal. Because nothing less could have forced you to let go. This is where most people fail. They survive the awakening, but they never move beyond it. They stay in the suffering, replaying it, attaching to it, identifying with it, never realizing that the suffering was only meant to be temporary. A passage, not a prison. But you're not here to suffer forever. You're here to step into something else. Something beyond the pain. Presence. Clarity. Freedom. Not the kind sold by self-proclaimed gurus. Not the kind wrapped in mystical illusions. But the real thing. The kind that comes when you stop chasing, stop resisting, stop trying to force life into something it was never meant to be. And when that happens, something shifts. The Kundalini no longer feels like a curse. The suffering no longer feels like an attack. The chaos, the destruction, the loss, all of it finally makes sense. Because it wasn't about breaking you. It was about breaking the illusion. And now, after everything, you finally see. Not with mystical vision. Not with some newfound supernatural ability. But with something far more powerful. Clarity. And once you have that, you are truly free.